The rabbis taught. Notnim mizonot lifnei hakelev. You could put food in front of the dog. Behatzer, in the hatzer. Netalo, if he took it. V'yatza, and he left. En iskakino. En iskakino, you don't have to, what's it called? You don't have to worry about him. Even though lechatchila, you're not supposed to give it to the dog to take outside, but sometimes you give a dog a bone and he eats it. Sometimes you give a dog a bone and he takes it and he runs it with it and he buries it. Nitalo v'yatza, en iskakimlo, it's not your problem. Rashi says, Kelev, Rami ale lezuno. You have to feed the Kelev. Now, is Rashi talking about my Kelev? It doesn't say notnim mitzonot lifnei kilbo. No? Any dog? It could be that we have a mitzvah to feed all the dogs. Why? L'kelev tashlichun oto. Why hakarat hatov? What's the hakarat hatov? Because they didn't bark in Mitzrayim. Right? It could be. Or it could be it's talking about my dog and it's a mitzvah. Anytime I have an animal that needs me to feed him, so then I have to feed him. So notnim mezonot lifnei hakelev behatzer netalo v'yatza. If he took the bone or food and he left, en iskakinlo, you don't have to stop him, and we're not going to say that people think, oh, you gave it to the dog to carry out on Shabbat, and maybe it's your dog, and it's the dog is doing melacha, whatever. Kayotzebo, similarly, notnim mezonot lifnei hanochri behatzer. If you have a goy, he comes over, you're allowed to give him food, even though, we'll see, netalo v'yatza. Now when it says, lifnei hanochri behatzer, you're allowed to give it to him in the hatzer, yani to eat over there. Netalo v'yatza, if he didn't eat it, he took it, he says, okay, I got a piece of cake, I'll see you later, I'm going to take this for the way. En iskakim lo, you don't have to stop him. Says Gemara, hatul amali, hainu hach, what's the difference? What's the difference if you give it to the dog? What's the difference if you give it to a goy? Either way, I don't have to stop him, and I'm allowed to give it to him to eat in the place. Mao de tema hai rami ale, v'hai lo rami ale. The dog is your mitzvah to feed. So therefore, we allowed the tirha for the dog. We allowed you to work for the dog because I have to feed it. Masha'en came for the goy. I'm not mechuyav to feed this goy. I don't have to give to him, so maybe I'm not allowed to do a tirha on Shabbat for feeding this goy. Kamash malan, that what? Kamash malan something. So you could understand kamash malan that I am hayav, or I am alav lizuno, it's a mitzvah to feed goyim. Or you could say kamash malan, that even though it's not a mitzvah lizuno, you're allowed to put food in front of him. Look in Tosfot. Notnim mezonot lanochri behatzer. You're allowed to put food in front of the goy in the hatzer. Afilu lebet shamai. Even according to Bet Shammai, deragil le'ochlo miyad, because generally when you put food in front of somebody, they eat it. V'davka mezonot, you're only allowed to put food. Aval she'ar hafatzim, if you want to put something, you want to give him a blow dryer, you want to give him a shovel. You can't put it. Maybe say I can't give it to him in his hand, but I can put it down and he takes it. No, and notnim lefnem, you can't give him. Asurim afilu lebet telel. The law shari bet Hillel. When does bet Hillel say you can give to the goy ela be'erev Shabbat? Aval b'Shabbat, to give it to him on Shabbat, he should take it out. Law, we don't allow it. V'im tomar amay notnim mezonot lenochri b'Shabbat. Why do we give food to the goy on Shabbat? Ha kivan de'em mezonotehem alecha. Since I'm not hayav to feed them, keda amrinan hacha, like it says over here. Ubeperek bet debetzah mosi ani et hanochri. Right, the Gemara has a discussion. Lachem velo lenochri, motzi ani et hanochri she'en mezonotehem alecha. You're not obligated to feed them. Litzad, it should be asur kedamrinim beperek batra. It says in the last perek, asur letroach mis Shabbat latet mezonot lefnei haya. What's a haya? Wild animal. You can't put food for wild animals on Shabbat. Mishum de'en mezonotehem alecha. You don't have to feed them. Right? They feed themselves. So you want to do hesed. Today is not the day to work here. So the same thing, l'chaora, since the goy feeds himself, why am I allowed to put food in front of him? Hachinami havole lemisar benochri v'yesh lomar kivan demefarnesim aniye nochrim im aniye Israel mishum darkei shalom. Since in general, even aniyim of goyim we feed with aniye Israel because of darkei shalom. Hashiv ketza mezonotav alecha. It's considered mezonot on you. Lenyan isur torach Shabbat Rabbanan. Aval le'inyan asiyat melacha b'yom tov. On Yom Tov, you're talking about cooking. Over here, I'm talking about an isur of tirha. Isur of tirha is the Rabbanan. It's enough of the fact of darkei shalom that it's important to have neighborly relationships is enough to be matir and isur de Rabbanan. But on Yom Tov, you're being matir cooking. Right? That's an isur de oraita. To be matir and isur de oraita, it's not enough of a reason to say it's mizonotav alecha. Right? It's an in-between. Darkei shalom is halfway. It's enough for a drabanan. It's not enough for a doraita. So look at what the next. So Tosfot quotes a case. Katuv be'or zarua. You with me? So look in the small print in the Tosfot. Katuv be'or zarua. Shepam achat, one time, halan ochri, a goy got sick. V'shalach liyehudi echad b'yom tov. He sent to a Jew on Yom Tov. Sheyishlach lo miyeno. Send me some wine. Ve'im lo yishlach lo yamut. If the Jew doesn't send him wine, he's going to die. I don't know exactly which particular sickness this was, right? Amen. V'anochri haya muchzak ba'ir. The goy was a citizen. I don't know exactly what the significance of that is. Maybe. Not about it. Okay. V'hitir, it didn't say he was the pirates. V'hitir l'shloach lo al yedei nochri. Allowed him to send it through a goy. Mishum darkei shalom. That was what. Amen. V'shalach el Rabbeinu Simcha. He sent to Rabbeinu Simcha. V'hitir lo, and he allowed him to, said it was okay. Aval lo al yedei Yisrael. You let a Jew carry him because it was hotza'ah shelo letzorich. Ul Rav Yitzchak nireh du adim b'Shabbat. We could allow the goy to take it to him on Shabbat. Im haya inyan kach shaya davar sheshayach darkei shalom. Kegon shaya nochri alam. Let's say the goy was a tough man. Nireh shemutar l'shloach lo yedei nochri l'didan. The leitlan hash reshut harabim deoraita. Tosfot is of the opinion that you need 600,000 people to be reshut harabim deoraita. And anytime you don't have 600,000 people, it's only drabanan. So for an isur drabanan, we said darkei shalom is enough. Okay. Let's continue. Tanu Rabbanan. Lo yaskir adam kelav lenochri. You shouldn't rent your kelim to a goy be'erev Shabbat on Friday. Ubedalit ubehei mutar. And on Thursday and Friday it's mutar. What, Rabbi Gamliel? That's to be washed. I'm renting it to them. Yaskir, I'm renting him my truck. Right. You have a tool rental place. So he says you can't rent it on Friday, and on Wednesday and Thursday it's okay. So the question is, what's the isur over here? So the Rif wants to say, the Rif left it out. The Rif didn't quote this braita. Why didn't the Rif quote this braita? Jack, why didn't the Rif quote this braita? Lo yiskor adam kelim lenochri be'erev Shabbat u'bedal rehei mutar. What do you think? Here. I'll read you from the Ran. If you have a Ran, open up on page Zayin. Nah, Tanu Rabbanan. Lo yiskor Garsina b'Gemara. He quotes our Gemara. V'hishmita harav alfas. The Rif left it out. Nir'eh, it seems, shehu sover dekebet shamai. De'it lehu shevitat kelim at yavolo kaimalan kavatayhu. Says, we have Bet Shammai says that your kelim can't do work on Shabbat. So if I rent kelim to a goy, it's asur because he's going to work with your kelim on Shabbat. That's Bet Shammai. We hold like Bet Hillel that it's okay to have your kelim work on Shabbat. So we're allowed to rent kelim to the goy. His animals, very good. So that's the way the Rif understood the Braita. What's the problem with?
When you rent something to somebody,
yeah,
you're trying to give them a contract that this belongs to you for that period of time.
Very good point, AB. But the question is, because he can't sell it, how serious are you about that contract? He can't sell it, right? So you're still holding some ownership, right? So that
you rent the house to somebody.
Who owns it? Could he sell it?
Can't sell it.
Okay, so therefore you still have an ownership.
So if he's running the washing machine,
Hazal Baruch. It's
on Shabbat.
if you would hold of Bet Shammai, you'd be in violation, no question. Baruch Hashem, we don't. Okay?
But the Reef did?
No, the Reef says that this Braita does. So the problem with the Reef, we don't have a problem. It's not us. But the Reef got away with a lot because he totally wrote off the Braita by attributing it to Bet Shammai. What's the problem with saying it's Shivitat Kelim? It's an obvious problem. If the Isur is Shivitat Kelim, why is it mutar on Thursday?
Right.
So look in Tosfot. Lo yeskir, en lefaresh, don't explain mishum Shivitat Kelim.
No, the reason is because
Bet Shammai is saying
You-
no to this, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Something small like this, but yet, it wouldn't be impossible for people to continue being religious.
Nah, Bet Shammai has allowances for a lot of things.
That's the end of business. That's the end of business. You can't be in real estate.
You could be in real estate. We'll make contracts. We'll sell the washing machine to the goy. Don't worry. Like Heteriska, we'll find a lot of contracts. Don't worry about it.
he rented it on Wednesday.
Bet Shammai was mafkir when he had. Bet Shammai was mafkir the pot. We have ways. Don't worry. Thank God we don't need them.
He rented it on Wednesday.
So what?
Don't get hung on it. We don't hold it.
Okay, it's maybe.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. He holds
How
the
could
Kelim has to sleep. The
it be
Kelim
that
has to
there could
sleep.
be such an opinion?
Either it is or it isn't. What am I going to tell you? Maybe Bet Shammai want you to only do business with Jews. I don't know. They don't pay enough. Let's go. Everybody wants wholesale. Lo yaskir. En lefaresh mishum shevitat kelim. Uchbet Shammai. De'im ken afilu b'rvi'i u'b'chamishi nami. Even on Wednesday and Thursday also. Ela kebet Hillel. We have to say it's like Bet Hillel deledlu shevitat kelim. Or behaluk v'talit v'chayotze bahenairi. It's talking about clothing. You can rent clothing to a goy because there's no work with it, right? The lo sheach b'hu shevitat kelim. Ve'asur. So why is it asur? Lefi shenir'eh kenotel sachar Shabbat. When you rent it on Friday, so Friday he's paying you. He's probably using it tomorrow. So it looks like you're getting paid specifically for Shabbat, even though he's paying you already from now and for later. But when you rent it on Friday, it looks worse. It looks like you're getting paid for Shabbat. Even though I'm not doing it in a way where it's asur on Shabbat, I'm renting it for a month. So I'm taking the Sachar Shabbat absorbed in with the other one. Right? The Immaskiro Liyom, if you're renting it for the day by day, even on Wednesday and Thursday, it's asur, like it says in Azahav. So therefore, Tosafot says it's asur to rent it on, even according to Bet Hillel, on Friday. Why? Because it looks like Sachar Shabbat and it goes even according to Bet Hillel. Lema'aseh, Maran is posek like the Rif because the Rambam also left it out. So the Rif and the Rambam, the two Amudei Hora'ah hold that it's Bet Shammai. Maran left it out. The Rambam quotes it, I think, to be Mahmir. Okay, Tanu Rabbanan. Chayotzebo, a similar halacha, en mishalchin igrot biyad nochri be'erev Shabbat. You cannot send a letter with a goy on Friday. Bedalit ubehei mutar. On Wednesday and Thursday it's mutar. Amru alav al Rabbi Yossi HaKohen. They said about Rabbi Yossi HaKohen. Okay. Amru alav al Rabbi Yossi HaKohen. Ve'amri la al Rabbi Yossi HaHasid. Shelo nimtza ketav yado biyad nochri me'olam. He never had a letter by a goy ever. What's the problem with sending the letter? Shelo nimtza ketav yado shelo yelucho b'Shabbat. He was afraid he'll take it on Shabbat. Tanu Rabbanan, we have another braita. En mishalachin igera biyad nochri erev Shabbat. You can't send a letter with a goy on Friday. Ela im ken kotzetz lo damim. Unless you made a set price. What happens when you make it a set price? Once you make it a set price, the goy is doing it not for you, but for him. That was what we said this morning in the halacha, that you make a set price, it converts the orot la'abedan of the Mishnah into from being your melacha to the goy's melacha. Now he's working for himself. Tosafot says, Elaim ken katzatz lo damim. Look in Tosfot. Elaim ken katzatz lo damim. Matniti nami. Al Mishnah. Denotnim kelim lekobes. That you're allowed to give your clothes to the washer guy. Ve'oro le'abedan. Airinami bekatzatz. Is also talking when you made a set price. The ma'alav making the set price changes the name on the work. When you make if you give it to the guy without a set price, he's doing it for you. You'll pay him for his time, but he's doing it for you. When you make a set, then it's not allowed. When you make a set price, so the work becomes his work. He's doing it for himself, and then he gives it back to you to get his money.
What if he comes to you?
Yeah.
And he tells you, listen, I can give you $50 cheaper if I could do it on Shabbat.
In the case, if you katzatz, it should be mutar.
You're making an agreement with him.
I can't. There's a couple of rules about the agreements. Let's before you ask halakha l'ma'aseh, we got to get through the piece, and then we can start talking because it's premature. Let's see.
Per hour is not.
I'm not clear about per hour what it is. I'm not sure what's not considered kotzetz. Let's assume that per hour isn't, but I'm not so sure that it holds up 100% in halakha. Let's see. Tan Rabbanan. En mishalchin igeret biyad nochri erev Shabbat. You can't send the letter with the goy on Friday. Ela im ken kotzetz lo damim. Unless you set a set price. Bet Shammai omrim. Bet Shammai says kedesh yagia lebeto. You have to send him out with enough time that he should get to the house of the person where it was sent to. Ubet Hillel omrim. Bet Hillel says kedesh yagia lebayit tasamuch lechoma. He has to get to the house closest to the wall of the city, either the wall of the city where you are or the wall of the city where he's going to. Mahloket between Rashi and the Rambam. V'halok katzatz. Says the Gemara, what do you mean? If I made a set price, he's allowed to work on Shabbat because it became his work, right? What's the problem? V'halok katzatz. Amar Rav Sheshat. Rav Sheshat says hachi ka'amar. Ve'im lo katzatz. If you didn't make a set price, Bet Shammai omrim. Bet Shammai says you have to send it early enough. Ad sheyagia lebeto. He has to get to his house, meaning the house of the guy you sent it to. Bet Hillel omrim. Ad sheyagia lebayit samuch lechoma. He has to get to the house of the person closest to the wall. Ve'ha'amarta reisha em mishalchin. 1 second. So now you're telling me that Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel are arguing when you didn't make a set price. Didn't you tell me if you didn't make a set price, you can't send at all?
What's different if it's choma, not choma?
Right, so what's this rule? Says the Gemara, lo kasha, it's not difficult. Had de kavia bedo'ar b'mata, had de lo kavia bedo'ar b'mata. What's do'ar, Jack?
Mail.
The postman. That's in modern Hebrew, the word do'ar comes from our Gemara. Look over here in Rashi. Do'ar Shelton ha'ir, he's like appointed in the city. Velo rigilin l'shloch igarot. They send the letters to him. The lashon of Maran is ish kol ketav elav yuval. There's like a nice lashon that they have. So if there's a postmaster in the city that he's going to, right? If they have a postmaster, so then there's no problem. Or you could imagine that some cities, they paid for a postmaster. Some cities shared a postmaster. Sometimes he was here, and sometimes he was there. So if the city is the type of city where there's a bedo'ar kavua b'mata, they have a postmaster officially in the city, so there's no problem. When he gets to the next town, he's going to go straight to the postmaster's house. He'll give him the item, and he takes it. He takes it to it's like when you send a letter to Israel. You give it to the guy, he puts it in the mailbox over there, and it goes to where it has to go. So if there's a postmaster, you give it to the guy. All he has to do is get to that guy's house. There's no problem. He's going to find the guy. He'll give it to him, and that's all. But if there's no postmaster, or the postmaster is not kavua, you're going to give the guy the letter. He has the letter. It says, it's written in Hebrew, right? L'chvod, Mr. So-and-so and so-and-so. He's going to take it. He comes to the town. He's asking everybody in the street on Shabbat, you know where Chaim Yankel lives? You know where Chaim Yankel lives? You know where Chaim Yankel lives? Every guy you see. What? They have the addresses then? Okay, 1 second. You know where Chaim Yankel lives? You know. So everywhere he goes, he's showing it's like this big Marita Ayin thing. People think that you sent him on Shabbat. So therefore, the letter is the worst of all the cases. The letter is worse than everything because it has your writing, and he's walking around town asking everybody. Masha'enkin, if there's a postmaster, he goes, he gives it to the guy before Shabbat, and it's over. It's finished. It's finished before Shabbat. If there's no postmaster, God knows how long it could go. Even though normally we let you give the kelim if there's enough time to finish it before Shabbat. Says that's only when there's not going to be a marita'im, but over here it's going to be much worse. So it comes out like this. We have basically three things. If you katzatz, if you made a set price, you could give it to him anytime, which is the same as all the things in our Mishnah, giving kelim to the washerman and giving oral abedan. I don't have to worry. I made a set price. He does it when he wants. If I gave it to him, if I didn't make a set price, we'll decide what we're paying him later, right? So then, if there's enough time to get, if there's a kavua postmaster and there's enough time to get there, it's mutar. If there's not enough time to get there, it's asur. And if there's no kavua postmaster, you're not allowed to send it on Friday, but you can send it on Thursday. Chaura, that's what it is. That's l'chaura. The Rambam and the Rif hold if there's no kavua postmaster, you can't even send it on Sunday. Yes, Abi, what's the question? We answered it now.
I got my mind on what you told me earlier.
Which is?
According to what you're telling me, then, if people pick a rabbi.
Oh, that's way off of the topic. Okay, you wait. I thought you were just on the top before. Tan Rabbanan. Let's give him a Gemara. Help him stay on the page. Here. Okay, Tan Rabbanan. Tan Rabbanan. En mafligim besefina. You're not allowed to leave on a boat. Pahot mishlosha yamim kodem laShabbat. You can't get on a boat less than 3 days before Shabbat. Yes, same thing. Same. Either way, it's all delivered on Shabbat. Not a problem. Let's go. Either way, Tan Rabbanan. En mafligim besefina. You're not allowed to. Rashi says mafligin, mafrishin. You're going away min yabasha layam, from the land to the sea. Vezeu lashon haflagat sefina. This is a lashon of the ship going away. Al shem shemaflig atzmo. You're separating yourself min yishuv, from civilization. U'mirabenu Yaakov shama'ati be'iruvin. From my Rabbi Rabbeinu Yaakov, I heard when we were learning Masechet Eruvin, she'emtza'ito shel yam nikra filgus. The middle of the sea is called pilgus. Ve'af belashon la'az pilgus. I don't know exactly. What pilgus? Pilgas. One is pilgus is in one, and the other one is in la'az is pilgas. Okay. So em mafligim besefina. You can't embark on a journey on a boat. Pahot mishlosha yamim kodem l'Shabbat. Till now we were on Friday it's asur, on Wednesday and Thursday it's mutar. Now you can't go not on Wednesday, not on Thursday, and maybe not even on Wednesday. Only if you're going for mundane things. Aval lidvar mitzvah. If you're going for a mitzvah, shapir dami, it's okay. That's a very interesting thing. On Friday. If it's asur, why does a dvar mitzvah make it mutar? Are you allowed to do averot for a dvar mitzvah? It's a big question. Let's see. So Rabbi says, if we allowed you to go for a mitzvah, you have to tell the goy, listen, on Shabbat don't go, don't move. And then if he doesn't listen, it's okay. But, at least you have to make an effort. Rashba gomer eno tzarich, you don't have to. They think you're crazy anyway. Umitzor litzidon, when you wear your tefillin, they think you're normal. Umitzor litzidon, if you're going from tzor to tzidon, which is less than a day's journey, filu be'erev Shabbat mutar, you're allowed to go even on Friday. So the question is, what's the isur of getting on the boat on Shabbat? So Tosafot says, the Rabbeinu Hananel, there's around 5 explanations. Rabbeinu Hananel says the reason why it's asur is because you're going out of the tehum. Right? So according to Rabbeinu Hananel, if the depth of the water is more than 10 tefachim, and everybody agrees that in tehumin lemala me'asara, above 10 tefachim in the water, there's no isur of tehum, it would be mutar. So we're only talking where he's going in a shallow bog type of area, it's very low, like that. That's the way according to Rabbeinu Hananel. According to the Rif says, one second, if there's an isur of techumin, then it shouldn't be mutar even for a dvar mitzvah. So the Rif says an amazing pshat. The Rif says that when you go on a boat, people tend to get seasick. So what's the problem? You're going to be mivatel onig Shabbat. Because after 3 days, many times you start to get acclimated to the sea air and the sea environment and the rolling of the waves, and you could enjoy the Shabbat. So if you leave 3 days before Shabbat, within the 3 days, by getting on the boat, you're going to be mivatel mitzvah. So it's asur. But lidvar mitzvah, osek b'mitzvah, patur min mitzvah. So the Rif in that way is very neat. I could get on the boat because what? I'm going to miss the mitzvah. Big deal. I'm doing another mitzvah. Whatever mitzvah, pidyon shvuyim, whatever I'm going to do. I'm going to learn Torah in Eretz Yisrael. No, I'm not going on a cruise, baby. I'm going for a mitzvah. For a cruise, you can't get on according to this 3 days before. So that's the question. Is parnasa mitzvah? Some say yes. Rabbeinu Tam says parnasa. You guys put your family. That's a mitzvah. Others say, listen, you guys put your family, but to consider a mitzvah yet, we're not going to consider it, and you can't leave for parnasa within 3 days.
So you can't get on a cruise on
Wait, we got a long time. According to Chamin Sion wants to say that nowadays the boats are better, they have stabilizers, a lot of people don't get nauseous, so therefore you'll be allowed to get on. Other people say there's a lot of people that still get seasick, so it's a rough.
The accepted reason is that this is getting on Wednesday.
No, on Wednesday is for sure mutar. On Friday is a question. Friday, according to Maran, it's asur.
Yeah, no, the problem on the cruise is they get on and off.
Could be getting back on it. Leave getting back on.
Why is Friday no good?
According to the Rif, because you can get seasick.
But the Rif's reason is
But it takes 3 days to get seasick.
No, the opposite. It takes 3 days to get over the seasick. After 3 days, you start to acclimate. If you didn't throw up enough, yeah.
You can get on Wednesday.
Right, because you're up by Shabbat, you'll be good. You'll be able to eat. Right? Many people get seasick. Okay, could be that's why Chamin Zion says nowadays less people get seasick. I don't know. The Tosafot learns differently.
It doesn't have to do with the time, it has to do with the conditions.
No, it also some people just get seasick from the sea air. Some people get seasick from the rolling of the boat. My wife will get seasick just from thinking that she's on a boat and there's no floor in there. And I don't think 3 days would help either. They didn't have Dramamine. Afilu tochat chum asur. The Tosfot says it's not because of techum. What's the problem? Then asur mishum shat. You're not allowed to swim on Shabbat. You're not allowed to. Shat means float. You're not allowed to float on the water. Tosafot feels that even being on a boat is the same isur. No, stop. Anytime you're on the water, floating on the water, the isur of shat up, the isur drabanan of shatin al pnei hamayim takes effect, and it's asur. Elama, if you got on 3 days before, whatever, it becomes like your house and it's mutar.
So you can go to our reshut. It's his reshut.
Well,
It's not from.
you don't float in the mikveh. It's a pool, but you're not floating. You just, what you do? You walk into the water. I didn't float. Swimming doesn't mean walking into the water. Swimming means swimming or floating. Okay, those are 3 pirushim. The Bala Ma'or has an interesting shot. The Ramban says the reason why it's asur, I'm having a good time. Ramban says because when they go on the boat, they have to do a lot of melachot, especially in the old, nowadays for sure. In the old days, they have to tie the knots, untie the knots, they have to do all types of sailor work. If you get on the boat on Friday, it looks like they're doing it for you. But the Ramban says it's only asur if it's Sefina Rov Yisrael. If it's Sefina Rov Akum, be mutar. That's a big heter, because if it's Rov Akum, it's mutar to get on the boat. The Bala Ma'or says many times a boat comes to Pikuach Nefesh. And therefore, if you get on Friday, it looks like many times on the boat you need Pikuach Nefesh. And once it's Pikuach Nefesh, it's really mutar. But on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it's called Kameh Shabbata. Right? We divide the week into 2 parts. After last Shabbat and getting ready for this Shabbat. From Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it's already getting ready for next Shabbat. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you're already muzhar to try not to come to Hilul Shabbat on Shabbat. So therefore, before Wednesday, I could go. After Wednesday, since I'm going to come to Pikuach Nefesh, I have to not go unless it's a Dvar Mitzvah. From the Bala Ma'or, they learned out a tremendous chidush that if a person is going in a caravan, in the old days, you went in a caravan, you're going with 10 guys, they're going to travel by donkey through the desert or by camel through the desert. It's going to come Shabbat, what? You're going to tell them, stop, I'm going to wait over here? Sakanan and Fashot. So at that point, you're allowed to go. But are you allowed to put yourself in that situation? Says the Bala Ma'or, 3 days before Shabbat, you're allowed.
But also, if you go Sunday, you know you're coming back next Sunday. So also, you know you're going to be in Shabbat.
But when I started, I wasn't in a situation of Pikuach
But you
Nefesh.
know you're going there in Shabbat.
I'm not muzhar. When I'm going on Shabbat, is it mutar or asur? It's mutar. Why?
In Shabbat.
On Shabbat, it's Pikuach Nefesh. So it's mutar. Elama, you're not, to put yourself in the Pikuach Nefesh, l'chatchila, you have to wait, it has to start 3 days before. That's the Bala Ma'or. Even though, l'ma'aseh, we hold like the Rif, but we sort of work with all of them a little bit. Tana Rabbanan. We have a similar thing. 3 days before Shabbat. Tana Rabbanan. En sarin al ayar, if it's really kosher, not only the food. Tana Rabbanan. En sarin al ayarot shel nochrim. You can't put a siege on a city of a goy, pahot mishlosha yamim kodem la Shabbat. No. He's not. When you're planning the campaign, try and start your siege 3 days before Shabbat. Aval, once you start, in mafsikim, you don't stop. V'chen haya Shammai omer. Shammai used to be doresh. Ve'asita ita milchama adrita. Where is it? Right. Asher hi osei milchama adrita afilu b'Shabbat. Till you conquer it, even on Shabbat. Once you start the war, go.
Otherwise you lose. They know. Oh, Shabbat.
Right. So you continue doing melacha on Shabbat. There's a whole, if I'm not mistaken, there's a midrash with the Hashmonaim. They were in a cave and they didn't fight until they came and they made it Rasha Adrita on Shabbat. 1 second.
If you're going to plan a siege or a siege, that means there's tremendous danger. And that's the reason why
if you're able to plan it without.
One day, it's like if you had to have an operation.
Yeah.
You plan it, you could, it has to be done. It's emergency.
If it's we're not talking we're not talking when it's an emergency. We're talking when you have a choice.
If you have a siege, that's not an emergency. The reason why
a siege is not an emergency. A siege is an offensive campaign. When you're talking a defensive campaign, you don't choose. When it's an offensive campaign, you choose when to do it.
You're attacking before they attack you. You're putting the siege.
No, I don't think a siege works like that. If it was, and if there was, and no question, if there's a question of sakana, it would be mutar. We're talking when you're choosing. David HaMelech put sieges on city just because he wanted to conquer. When lahavdil, not comparing. When Saddam Hussein attacked Kuwait, was there a sakana situation? For Saddam?
No.
When he invaded Kuwait, there was no sakana for him.
So he shouldn't have done it on Shabbat.
Right. According to the Rif, it goes very good. Why? Because the Rif says the first 3 days of war, you're nervous. You can't eat. After that, you get used to it. Right.
1991 war, Rabbi. The first 3 days, that was the worst thing. 1991 war.
You couldn't breathe. Okay. Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. We didn't choose when to start that war. Amar Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. I left. Amar Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. I left. I was in this. I left. Nohagim ayu shel bet Abba, that they used to give the kelim lekobes nochri 3 days before Shabbat, like Bet Shammai. Tanya. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. Kach haya minhago shel bet Rabban Gamliel. The custom in the house of Rabban Gamliel was sheyu notnim kli lavan lekobes. They would give the white clothes to the washerman shlosha yamim kodem l'Shabbat. V'tzivuim, but the colored ones afilu be'erev Shabbat. Umidivrem lamadnu. From there we learn shalevanim kashim lechabesan yoter men tzuvim. It's harder to wash white clothes than colored clothes. Abaya was giving some colored garments to the washer guy. Amarle kama ba'iti lave. He says, how much you charging me for the colored clothes? Amarle kidhivara. It's the same price as the white. I charge you for the colored. Amarle, it's probably an extra. Kvar kidmun charabanan. The rabbis already beat you. They told me that white is harder. I want a discount on the colored clothes. Amar Abaye. Haiman diyahiv. Now, once we're talking about Abaye's laundry strategies, Haiman diyahiv mana lekatzra. The guy that's giving clothes to the washer guy. B'mishcha neitiv leu b'mishcha nishkol mine. Let him give it to him and measure how long it is. And when he takes it back, let him measure how long it is. The tafeh, if he stretched it too much, afsedeh, he ruined it. The matche. The batzir, and if it's too short, afsedeh, the kavse, he shrunk it. So measure it when you give it to him. Measure when you come back. This way he'll know to be careful, and you'll know if you can discount your price when he ruins your clothes. Vishavin. They call them katzre. Why do they call the laundrymen katzre? Because they katzer, they shorten your clothes. Vishavin elu ve'elu. Sheto'anim bekorot bet abad. Ma'ishna kulu. Now this is a complicated piece.
I'm getting fat, Rabbi, every time.
That's right, Jack. It's not your fault.
Not that, right?
It's not your fault. It's not all that sahlab. Ma'ishna kulu. Tegazru behu. U'ma'ishna korot bet abad. How come when it comes to all these things that you're doing on Friday, Bet Shammai doesn't let? And by Igulei Agad they let, says the Gemara. Hanach, di'avilu b'Shabbat mehayev hatat. Those things, if you do on Shabbat, yehayav hatat, gazru behu. Bet Shammai, erev Shabbat im hashecha. Bet Shammai says you're not allowed to do it on Friday afternoon. Korot bet abad v'Igulei Agad. The korot bet abad, the putting the beams on top of the wine. And on the olives, Igulei Agat, di'avilu b'Shabbat. If you do it on Shabbat, lo mehayev hatat. He's not hayav hatat because it's already pressed, like we said yesterday. Lo gazru. They didn't make a gezerah. Man tana. Who's the tana of our Mishnah? The kol midi da'ati mimela shapir dami. That anything that would come out by itself, and I just hurried it up, is okay. And you're allowed to do it on Friday, and we don't. There's no issue d'oraita if I do it on Shabbat. Amar Rabbi Yossi, but Rabbi Hanina, Rabbi Ishmael. He says it's Rabbi Ishmael. The Tanan we learned it's the end of our Perek. Hashum vehaboser vehamililot. Right? Shum is garlic. Boser is chisrum is the early stage. Rashi explains. Boser anavim betchilatan when they're fresh, when they're young. Kishen dakim, motzim mehem mashkin, you press them for a juice, litbol bo basar, to dip your meat in. Lefishu hazak v'karov lahmitz. It's very strong, and it becomes vinegary. V'amililot, this one have a shibulin, shelo bishlu kol surkan. They're not fully ripe. Merasekan v'to'anem ba'avenim. You grind them. You put stones on them. Umashke zavmem, and some juice comes out of them. Umetabel bo, and you dip in it. Right? Hashum v'abos mililot. Shirisekan mi be'od yom, that you crush them before Shabbat. Rabbi Ishmael Omer, Rabbi Ishmael says, Yigmor mi shetechshach. Rashi learns that you could allow it to continue pressing after Shabbat.
Get the name Ishmael.
It's a beautiful name. Yishmael. Hashem should hear us. Some say that Yishmael is because Hashem is going to listen to the tefillot of Yisrael in the future. Hashem will listen to the tefillot of Yisrael in the future. That's why Yishmael was called Yishmael.
No, why was this rabbi? How did this rabbi get a name Yishmael?
Because Yishmael is Abraham's son. Hashem called the name. He thought it was a nice name. We even had later. We had the Rabbi Ishmael. Rabbi Ishmael HaKohen wrote a book called Zerai Met.
We don't have Rabbi Esav.
No, Esav didn't do teshuvah, and Esav wasn't named by Hashem. That doesn't have a beautiful connotation like Ishmael does. There's a certain power in Ishmael.
Maybe it was a self-kill, maybe.
Right. Good point. Listen, it bothers everybody as much as it bothers you. But what are you going to do? You see clearly that there was a masoret of calling Ishmael. We had to be Ishmael Kohen Gadol.
Also, they didn't have problems with suicide bombers.
Okay, true.
So obviously they were a little more comfortable with
the name Ishmael. With the Arabs? Maybe yes, maybe no. I don't know. Right? The Tanan, Hashum, Vehaboser, Vehamililot. So let's see. Hashum, Vehaboser, Vehamililot. Shiriskam, Rabbi Ishmael, Yigmor, Mi Shetechshach. You could allow the juice to finish coming out after it's dark. Rabbi Akiva Omer, Lo Yigmor, you can't allow it to finish coming out. So you see that Rabbi Ishmael says it's okay. Tosafot is bothered. What do you mean? That's like Bet Shammai? Rabbi Akiva that says it's asur like Bet Shammai, and maybe Rabbi Ishmael is only because he goes like Bet Hillel. So he says one way you could explain it is that we have a gezerah on Shabbat, mashkim shezavu, that if juice comes out on Shabbat from grapes or from olives, right, or any fruit that's omed la'achila, the juice is asur, even though nobody pressed it. It just dripped out by itself. Why? Gezerah that you might come to press it. So now that's clearly gezerah deoraita. Over here, where even if you press it, it's not going to be an isur deoraita because it's already crushed. So when he says yigmor mishetechshach, he can let it finish and you can use it on Shabbat. So that would be the proof that it's not an isur deoraita. Could be. Oh, when you see in the end, he's let Yitzchak go first. Make bruto Yitzchak v'Ishmael banav. So you for the burial. So you see, he acknowledged Yitzchak's primacy. Lo yigmor. What? That's the whole question. We'll see.
What's an item that cannot be squeezed? You use it to make flavoring on waters. You know how to make licorice drink?
They soak it. The stamets mutar. I don't know. Let's go. V'Rabbi
What do you mean they both died at the same time?
No. When Abraham died, Yitzchak was the lead. He let Yitzchak go first. To be the head of the family. Whereas Esav, when Yitzchak died, he was the head of the family. It says Esav Yaakov banav. You see the difference. But Rabbi Elazar says, Amar Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar Amar Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar says it's Rabbi Elazar. The Tanan, we have a Mishnah. Halot devash. If you have honeycomb, shirisekan, that you chop them open be'erev Shabbat on Friday, v'yatzu me'atzman, and the honey dripped out, asur. The honey is asur. Gezerah might come to do it on Shabbat. V'Rabbi Elazar matir. And Rabbi Elazar says it's mutar because once it's chopped, even if you squeeze it, it's not asur.
Would you be able to eat the honeycomb that comes out? Would you like?
If you didn't, then you'd be allowed to eat the honey comes out. But you wouldn't be allowed on Shabbat to take fresh honeycomb and cut it. I know, but you're not let it squeeze oranges on Shabbat, and you're not let it chop open honeycomb. Similar to one to the other. What? Lemon's another story. V'Rabbi Elazar Mati. V'Rabbi Yosef Hanina, who said that it's the other Mishnah of Hashum v'Abosir. My ta'ama lo amar Rabbi Elazar, that it's Rabbi Elazar. Amar lecha. Hatam is different. De'mi'ikara ochel u'basof ochel. You know why it's mutar over there? It says it's staying food. It's going from food to food. Maybe it's always an isud rabbanan. Masha'enken over here. Hacha Timbikara ochel v'hashta mashke. In the beginning it's a food, and then it becomes a mashke. Maybe it should be muktzeh, or maybe it should be asur because of a deoraita. Kamash malan. That's why he had to bring shum boser milulot. That's going from an ochel to a mashke. Rabbi Elazar amar lecha. Rabbi Elazar says you're right. Rabbi Elazar in that Mishnah is talking about food to food, but I have a braita where he holds even by fruit by drinks. Tafilu zetim v'anavim nami shari. Teha ki ata Rav Hoshaya mi Nehar De'ah. When Rav Hoshaya came from Nehar De'ah, ata he came ve'aita matnita biyadeh. He brought us a braita that we never heard. Zetim v'anavim, grapes and olives and grapes. Shirisekan me'erev Shabbat, that you crush them before Shabbat. V'yatzu me'atzmam, and the juice came out on its own. Asurim, the juice is asur on Shabbat like mashkim shezavu. V'Rabbi Elazar v'Rabbi Shimon matirim. Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon are matir. So over there it's ochel that's becoming mashke, and yet he's matir. So you see, even though in our Mishnah we only have him talking about honey, he really holds the same even by a mashke, even by a liquid. So therefore, so now the question is, if he had that braita, why didn't he call that braita? Because that braita wasn't well known. Braita not everybody knew. Mishnayot, everybody knew. So when you want to quote Rabbi Elazar, he quoted Rabbi Elazar in the Mishnah. How do I know? Now I'll quote you the Braita, but at least I'm quoting a Shita that everybody knows. Okay, V'Rabbi Yossi B'Rabbi Hanina, it sounds like a good proof. Why didn't he quote that? Braita lo shmiele. He never heard that Braita. He didn't know for sure that Rabbi Yishmael would hold it even by a liquid. That's why he said it's the other Mishnah.
So we should say he would be more there now.
Probably. V'Rabbi Elazar, my ta'ama, lo amar ki Rabbi Yossi B'Rabbi Hanina. Why didn't he say that it's the rabbi? No, before, but you have a Mishnah that's much clearer. Ashuma bos v'melilot. What's the matter with that? That's very clear. Yigmor mishetechshach. So he says, "My ta'ama lo amar ki Rabbi Yossi B'Rabbi Hanina. Amar lecha lav itmar Allah." Didn't we say about that Mishnah? Amar Rabbi Yohanan, Amar Abba Bar Hanina, Amar Rabbi Yohanan, b'mehusarin dika. If you're talking about shum boser mililot that weren't crushed, l'kule alma lo pligi. Everybody agrees that you're not allowed to use it when it comes out. Ki pligi. When do they argue? B'mehusarim shechika. They're arguing if it's crushed, but it's not ground, it's not pulverized. V'hani nami, our Mishnah, when we're talking about putting the grapes in, kimhusarim dikadamu. It's talking where they weren't crushed yet. So that's why it's not enough to bring a rabbi that's only matir after dika. I have to bring a rabbi that's matir even before dika. And that's why I went to zetim v'anavim shirisikan. So what? Risikan is less than dika. There's three levels. There is risuk, there's dika, and there's shechika. So we need someone that's matir even by risuk. Hora Rabbi Yossi B'Rabbi Hanina, ki Rabbi Yishmael. He was matir like Rabbi Yishmael that shum boser mililot is mutar. What? And also zetim v'anavim. But Rabbi Yishmael is talking about shum boser mililot. No, l'chaora. That's the whole question in the Rishonim. I don't have time to go into that whole question yet. The Gemara says, now we go on, it's a strange segue, the Rishonim are bothered. Shemen shel bedadin, umachzalot shel bedadin. So Rashi says, Shemen shel bedadin, Aidi da Airi bebet abad. Once we were talking about stuff in the olive press, Nakatle, we started talking about it. Shemen amishtayer bezaviot abad. You have corners on the olive press, and there's some oil stuck in the corners. Tachat te'ina, underneath the pile. V'hu nitan lebadadin. So when they finish, they give it to the workers. It's like a tip. V'chen mahtzalot shel badadim. The mats of the olive press. Shemechasim bahem et hazetim. They cover the olives with them. Rav asar. Rav was osir the oil and the mats. Mishum muktzeh, because they're muktzeh. Why they're muktzeh? Not so clear. The Rav savar ke Rabbi Yehuda b'muktzeh. Rav held like Rabbi Yehuda b'muktzeh. V'Shmuel savar ke Rabbi Shimon delet le-muktzeh. Now, there's an introduction needs to be given over here to muktzeh, because commonly, what people commonly think as muktzeh is not really muktzeh. When we think of muktzeh, my cell phone is muktzeh, my hammer is muktzeh, a pen is muktzeh, but that's not technical muktzeh. Technically, my pen is called a kli shemlachto le'isur, and my cell phone is either a kli shemlachto le'isur or it's a muktzeh mechama hisaron kis. But the literal meaning of muktzeh means pushed off, pushed out, something that I don't use, right? You could have muktzeh on food. How is food muktzeh? If you have food that you put in storage, right? You have a storeroom out there, you don't use it. It's in storage.
It's on the roof to dry.
Or,
It's not edible right now. That's why.
there's many different reasons. I could have a storeroom that I'm not using for the next 6 months.
You prepare a salad for Saturday night.
No. That's short term. I'm talking long term. You have, let's say your wife she's making a sebet, so she's filling the freezer, right? So she's got trays of stuff in the freezer, ready to eat, just defrosted, right? What would happen if you steal one of those? chop off your hand. Don't touch that. That's for the body. Don't touch that, right? It's very dangerous stuff, that kind of stuff. Now, so that's pikuach nefesh. That kind of stuff is to a certain degree you will maktzeh from your da'at. Looking for food is almost like there's no food in the house. We have a whole freezer downstairs. That's not here, your wife will tell you. That doesn't exist. That's for the body. Don't touch it. Or that's for my card game. Whatever it is. Don't touch it. Don't touch. Off, out. So now, Rabbi Yehuda says, once you push something out like that, it's for the Sabbath, it's for the winter, it's for later, that halachically, you can't use it on Shabbat. Because everything that's used on Shabbat has to be in your mind from before. So Rabbi Yehuda says something that you have out in storage, in the freezer, in the thing, muktzeh. Totally muktzeh. Not that you could use, totally muktzeh. Rabbi Shimon says, letle muktzeh. Rabbi Shimon says, nothing is ever totally out of mind.
That's right.
Worst comes to worst, there might be some situation where your wife, if your mother-in-law came over on Shabbat, your wife might dip into the Sabbath stock if it was important enough. What?
You have photographs.
Let's say there's 800,000 different permutations. Let's stick with food because we could all. That's the case we're talking about. I have the freezer filled for the Sabbath. Yeah. So Rabbi Shimon says everybody in the back of their mind knows your wife. I have it in case the rabbi comes. In case I'll pull it out. We'll defrost it and we'll serve it. So Rabbi Shimon says it's not fully out of mind. So that's the difference between Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda.
And the proof is if all of a sudden there was a drought or something,
No,
there was an emergency, you needed to defrost it and
right.
get it.
That's for sure, but it has to be something that I would do a lot, yani, even on Shabbat. The question is, Rabbi Yehuda also agrees to that. The question is that in my mind enough or not? Rabbi Yehuda says that's not in your mind. So therefore it's muktzeh. Rabbi Shimon says no, in the back of your mind it's always there, and that's enough. It's a question of how far in the mind we need it to be in order not to be muktzeh. So therefore, the shemen shel bedadin, or the shemen that's in the mat, Rabbi Yehuda seems to hold. It's not so clear. This is a rough case that it's muktzeh. It wasn't in your mind. You weren't really thinking about it.
If you're putting it away to the party and all of a sudden 30 people walk in your house.
According to the Rabbi Yehuda, you wouldn't be allowed to take it out. Muktzeh. On Sunday, yeah, but not on Shabbat. It was muktzeh.
It's muktzeh because you're paying the guy with it.
Maybe. I'm not sure. Tosafot says, top line in Tosafot, kasher, de malo laskir kan din muktzeh. Lama yeh Hashem in muktzeh? Hard. Tosafot wants to learn that it's nolad because it's stuck, you can't get to it, whatever. Long story. Al kol panim, that's the machloket. Rav is like Rabbi Yehuda, that it's considered muktzeh, and Shemuel is matir like Rabbi Shimon. Hani karche dezuzeh. Karche dezuzeh, Rashi tells us, is mats that are tied together that they use to cover merchandise on the ships. Zuzeh is sifinot, right? So they cover this stuff. No, zuzeh is ships, right? Oh, the fishim's time. Sorry. Right? Tshuvat Egonim mefareshu lashon sefina belashon arami. Okay. Rav Asar, Rav says they're muktzeh, v'Shmuel Shari. Shmuel says it's mutar. Again, Rashi says it because of muktzeh, and it's hard to understand exactly why. Maybe because it's used for business, so it's out of mind. Reserved for commercial. And makpid, there's some things that you makpid not to take from. There's business. No shot I'm taking from it on Shabbat, because I need to keep it reserved for business. Could be. Tosfot learns differently that it's ma'us. They use it to cover fish. When we talk about klishim lachtol isur, so let's say we have a pen. A pen could be muktzeh, could not be muktzeh. It's a klishim lachtol isur. You have the pen. Really, it's not set aside for work on Shabbat because can't write. But there's other things I could do with the pen. 1 second before I go to the question, I could scratch my head with the pen. I could use it. I have a screwdriver. Screwing in screws is asur, but I could use it to pick the lock to get into the bathroom. So a screwdriver is not fully muktzeh because even though its main purpose is no good. They all have secondary purposes. But then you have something that you won't use for a secondary purpose.
If a guy lives,
Let me finish. Ask me after. You have a secondary purpose. I won't use for any something that's so delicate. You have surgical tools. You're not using surgery knives to cut your steak. You're not gonna. So therefore, it's muktzeh, because I'll only use it for surgery, which is asur. So I have commercial stuff. That's like the stuff in the freezer. It's worse than the stuff in the freezer. The stuff in the freezer, maybe. Business stuff, don't touch, leave it alone. Let's finish the page and then we can ask questions. Hahu, we're going to give a whole bunch of cases. Rav Asav Shmuel Shari. Amar Rav Nachman, is lehilba. If you have a cow, a goat that's set aside for milk, I assume he's talking on Yom Tov. Virachel legizata. Or you have a sheep that's set aside for its shearings. V'tarnegolet, and a chicken lebetzata, that's set aside for its eggs. V'tore deradya, and the cows that you use for plowing. V'tamre deiska, and dates that are set aside for business. Rav Asar, like Rabbi Yehuda. V'Shmuel Amar mutar, Shmuel says it's mutar, like Rabbi Shimon. V'kamiflegi beplukta Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Shimon, like we said. Hahu Talmida, there was a student, the Ore, who gave a psak beharta de Argiz, in a city called Charta, that was built by a magician called Argiz, ki Rabbi Shimon. He gave a psak like Rabbi Shimon. Shamte Rav Hamnuna. Rav Hamnuna put him in Hirim. Says Gemara, ha ki Rabbi Shimon svirale. Rav Hamnuna himself holds like Rabbi Shimon. Why did he put him in Hirim? Be'atre de Rav Hava. This was Rav's town. In Rav's town, you can't come and give a psak like Rabbi Shimon. Lo ibai he shouldn't do that. Hane tre talmide. Now we have another story. There were two students. Had matzil behad mana vehad matzil be'arba vehamesh mani. If there's a fire, Chazal made a gezerah that you only allowed to save enough for 3 seudot. But that's if you're saving in many different kelim. If you're saving in one big thing, you can take out as much as you want. One put everything into one keli and took it out. The other one, he put into different kelim, and then he put the different kelim into one big keli. V'kamiflegi beplukta the Rabba Barzav the Rav Huna, who argue about this later. En solim basar batzel ubetza. You're not allowed to cook meat, onions. You can't roast meat, onions, and eggs. Ela kideshi yitzolimi be'od yom. It has to be roasted before Shabbat, and we'll see how much. Why? Again, the gezerah, maybe you'll stir the coals to get it ready. En notnim patla tanur. You can't put bread in the oven im hashecha by sunset. Velo harara al gabe gehalim. You can't put a piece of bread on top of the coals. Ela kedeshi kiremu panemi be'od yom. It has to crust before Shabbat, and then if it does, you can let it finish. Rabbi Eliezer says kedeshi kroma tachton. It has to be enough that the bottom gets crusted, and we don't know if that's a kula or chumrah. We'll see in the Gemara. Mishal shelin et pesach batanur im hashecha. If you're from the last group of Korban Pesach, or you got home late, you want to put it in right before Shki'ah, and let's say Pesach is Shabbat, you're allowed to lower it into the oven. The ovens were upright, and they would lower the Pesach in. You can lower it in im hashecha, even though normally we don't let you do that. Gizera shemi chate begehalim. The Bnei Habura, when they're sitting there by the Korban Pesach, they're zirizim, they remind each other they won't let it come to an isur. Uma'achizim et ha'ur b'mdurat bet ha'moked. You're allowed to start the fire in the Bet HaMoked. There's a room in the Bet HaMikdash where they had a fire going to warm up the Kohanim who walked barefoot on the floor, because the wood in the Bet HaMikdash is dry, and the Kohanim are zirizim. You're allowed to start it even right before Shabbat. Ubegvulin, but out of the Bet HaMikdash, you're not allowed to start a fire before Shabbat. Kedesh etahaz ha'ur berubo. The fire has to be already burning in most of the log. If not, sometimes you got to play with it to get it going. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, bepehamin kol shu. Coals right away, because it takes fire. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen.